welcome to the Charter Review Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, April 20th. Sorry we're starting a little bit late. Roll call. I'm here. Councilmember Lepari-Shu.
I'm here.
Councilmember Carson. City Administrator Greg Mattice is here. Any corrections to the meeting minutes on the 23rd of March? Or, excuse me, the 20th of March?
The 20th of March? No, I think all three of us were here.
Hey, look at that. I got a short memory. All right, so topics. Term limits. We're gonna wordsmith. People are gonna come back with ideas for C17. Is that the compound chicken?
It is.
Okay. C17 for terms of office. I guess I'm looking more for probably, is this something we still want to kind of work on as term and limits for the boards and commissions, or something we want to move past for now and come back at a later date? What's the feeling as a committee? I mean, I think there's a,
Well, I thought we were close, weren't we? I had scratched out serve on the last sentence and put in be appointed. I think that was Katie's suggestion, right? I think Greg had a couple of thoughts on it. I think the one part that stood out was the reappointment lapse time.
right, we were talking about, if you're appointed, does that count towards your 3 years? Or 5 years or whatever, your 3 consecutive terms?
Well, I think on the reappointment was suggesting that if a board or commission had difficulty finding someone new to take over, what does that period of time look like? Is it weeks, months?
And how do we define reasonable effort? Because you could just wait. I don't know what I just dropped. Oh. Keeps my purse clean.
Reasonable effort, I think, should be a documented reasonable effort.
Yeah,
Document that you reached out to,
even if it's just a list,
you know,
like a,
say at least. I mean, I don't really gotta put a number on how many people reach out to, but just have a list that you went out for. I mean, I think if you don't get anybody in 6 months, you should be able to reappoint that person. Unless somebody wants it quicker than that.
yeah, I feel like 3 months with a reasonable effort, like if you talk to 10 people in 3 months and you can't, then there's no reason to just wait for 6 months.
Okay, 3 months.
Yeah, it's a fiscal quarter, and it's enough time to solicit suggestions and reach out to those people.
Because it takes time for people to think about it.
But then it doesn't hold up a commission just for the sake of saying time has passed.
Right.
Do you think we have to quantify the effort?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it should be documented. There should be, he should be, whoever's in the mayor's seat should have to have a document, you know, that they can hand out that, you know, I went to these people, this was their answer. You know, you could even give comments like, hey, it's burning too much of my time, whatever he wants to do, but it should at least be a date, a time, and the person's name, and then what their answer was, you know.
Yeah,
We're asking, do you have to quantify?
like, do you have to say 10?
Right.
No, I think reasonable effort can be defined at the council, by the council.
At the time of potential appointment?
Yeah,
Meaning
so So say the mayor brought someone up for reappointment who had exceeded their term limit. He could say, you know, he or she could say, you know, I'm putting this person back up for reappointment, and, you know, this is my record of documentation, and the council could at that time say, we don't think that's enough, you know? And I would hope that they would also say, here are some more suggestions for you to try, you know, and not just tough cookies, but I feel like there's potential for that to vary depending on what board or commission, so like 10 may not be reasonable for every board and commission. Maybe like parks, if you reached out to 10 people and nobody wanted to do it, I would say keep looking. There's, you know, however many people in the city, and I'm sure somebody cares about the parks, so
Sure.
keep trying. But 10 after you, for example, the airport commission.
Or ZBA or planning where it takes some intimate knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna go with Dave Merze, and I would say that reasonable is reasonable enough, because we can define what that is at any given time. Yeah.
I agree with you that it depends on the board or the commission, whether or not, you know, if you came back and said, geez, I've asked 5, 6 people,
Mm-hmm.
there's just not an interest there.
Mm-hmm.
That some would turn right around and say, you're right. If it was parks, they would say, there's gotta be a lot more people out there that are interested. But
I will say, I did have someone reach out to me about this topic, and they were wondering about, so I feel like this is a good time to bring it up, because we're talking about like the knowledge of specific boards, like, and the airport commission is one that we've been talking about because we're having a lot of trouble recruiting for it. Is there training similar to like the planning commission that people who were potentially interested in the airport could go to, that we could send them to be able to widen the pool of people who could at least acquire that knowledge if they didn't have it already?
there's conferences,
Okay.
that's where, I know myself and Ed, we picked up knowledge about airports
Okay.
through conferences. There's reading material, lots and lots of FAA manuals to go through,
Okay.
what it means to oversee an airport. So,
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think that, you know, we've been talking about the knowledge required being kind of a limiting factor, but if there's a way we can provide that knowledge, maybe we can spread the net a little wider.
right, so it's that type of position that you just don't get to show up to the meeting. You literally gotta do some homework, continual education as you're going through it.
Yeah, just like the ZBA and the planning, you gotta,
Those two, you've gotta get annual training.
Yeah, there's like mandated.
So that's what intimidates some people when they find out how much time will be invested.
Sure.
But I'll be honest with you, Scott, I kinda like the number 10,
10, okay.
because I think it really shows that the individual in the office showed intent by reaching out to 10 people and being rejected 10 times.
Yeah.
So 3 months and at least be documented, and be at least 3 months before you can bring that person's name back. At least 10, documented 10 individuals. So,
If you want to hear it.
yeah, go ahead.
A member of a board or commission who was previously ineligible for reappointment secondary to having served 3 consecutive full terms of office shall be eligible for reappointment after a period of 3 months with documentation of a reasonable effort to fill that office having been made, including the attempts to solicit 10 new members. I don't know if new members is word 10 potential candidates or
Yeah, I would say potential
candidates.
beautiful. You just whip that up.
Nice job, Terry.
Oh, I forget, failed to mention at the other part of the beginning of the meeting, our city clerk is here. Sorry. Because I don't think she shows up on camera over there. I think she's hidden in the corner, so. I kind of like how that is. Maybe she can, well, as we get done with this meeting, she can distribute that to us. Do we want Dave to look at that first before we go to the board with it?
Yes.
So we'll have that sent to Dave. Greg, what'd you think? You think that's worded good? Okay, that's fine. I just didn't want you to think we're forgetting about you. Is there anything else we want to do with term limits right now? In the way of, do we want to look at term limits on elected officials as well, since we're looking at them? So, I've had a couple thoughts on this. I mean, I do believe in term limits. That's, I mean, I don't know where you want to do start with the mayor, two consecutive terms, that's 8 years. So.
You think we have 3 terms for the council?
And then no more than, 3 consecutive terms for the council. I mean, you could even put 3 consecutive terms and then a break in service. So they could, but, I mean, I think if you're doing 12 years, I mean, that's 12 years for council, and that's 8 years for mayor. I'm not really sure, anybody have an opinion on that? Is that something you want to look at or not look at, or?
No, I agree with it.
I mean, I'm fine to look at it. I probably wouldn't support it just because I would be more inclined to support it for the mayor. But because it's a general election, there is a term limit. I mean, you could have someone run against you and you could lose. You have to earn your seat every 4 years. So it's not like you're elected once and you serve until you're done. Also, I think 12 years is a long time. And most people are probably gonna give it up by then. So I don't know that I see the necessity. And since this is basically like a volunteer gig with no real individual authority, I don't see why we would need to enact that. I think with the mayor, there's much more influence with state legislators and setting, the individual in that seat can set like the direction for the city single-handedly. So for that, I could see, a term limit. But then again, we've had really great mayors in the past that I wouldn't necessarily want to say, well, you can't be mayor anymore, even though you're doing a great job. So I feel ambivalent a little bit about, but I could go probably either way with the mayor. But I think for council, because it's 1 of 8 and your neighborhood chooses to put you in that spot or not, I feel like it's less necessary. Yeah, that's my personal feeling.
Dave Brenner was the last one who won 3 terms as mayor.
Yeah, and he was great.
Oh, gosh.
we could play devil's advocate and say if that's, spin that around to our boards and commissions, because we appoint them, we have the opportunity to stop them, and why would you have
Sure.
term limits on them? You know, I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate with that, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of the same.
I
You know.
don't disagree with that thinking. I mean, and that's why I had initially suggested the supermajority thing, because that felt like a decisive, you know, yes, we want this person to continue, you know. There's a check to it, but it's saying, you know, this person's doing a good job and we want them to keep going. But that just didn't take root, so.
Right. I mean, I've always been term limits. I think from federal all the way down, there should be term limits. That's just,
Sure.
that's just me. That's, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think if someone really feels that a council member has been in their seat for too long, then they should recruit an opponent. And they should let their neighbors decide. 'Cause I remember when I said I wanted to run for city council, and, the chair of the county committee at the time said, "You're kind of a unicorn because no one asked you to run." So, a lot of times there's like arm twisting, and, you know, if you think the commitment of the airport commission is a lot, you know, I just think, gosh, even with the mayor, you know, it doesn't pay anything. You have to quit your job because you can't do it well unless you have a part-time job and you do part-time and part-time. Right now, you know, it's really only like retired people who have been able to hold that position. I don't know. I mean, I think like, yeah, I think limiting it, I certainly get the thought process of like new blood, right? New ideas. And I think there's value in that. I also think that can be earned through election. So if somebody were to say that, you know, someone on council or the mayor, but I think that's harder, you know, had stagnated, wasn't serving their constituents, really wanted to see them off, then there's a way to do that. You just recruit. The Republicans did a great job this year.
You know, we're at the local level, you're not having to deal with super PACs.
Right.
You know, at the state and federal level, you're dealing with super PACs, so, I don't know, maybe just table for a while.
Yeah, we could table that and come back. I mean,
Sure, I mean, like you said, I'm welcome to discuss it, and since it's only 3 of us, like, who knows how the rest of the council feels? That's just my personal feeling, is that it's like, almost, when you get somebody in that role who wants to do it, if they're doing a good job and their neighborhood is supportive of them, then they'll continue to elect them, and if they're not, then the neighborhood won't. Or there's a way to, you know, so I just don't know if putting a limit on it is necessary.
I'm not sure who the longest reigning council member was, but I think Asa Allison has to be right up there,
Hey, Sal.
you know.
Yeah.
And he did a wonderful, I mean, he was the financial, why we're the way we are right now.
Yeah.
You know, he was a financial wizard with that.
Well, he also worked for the city of Norwich.
Yeah.
He was the financial officer for the city of Norwich.
Yes. So,
They are.
yeah, we can,
Yeah, you went to Lawrence, right?
Really? Is that condescending? Oh, you went to Lawrence.
Well, they're not your rival.
Jaguars.
I didn't get to sit in the back of the classroom and dodge the questions. There wasn't enough of us to do that, so you actually had to answer the question, do your homework.
Okay, kudos.
You weren't good on the football team unless you walked away with purple on your helmet.
All right, there, Mr.
All right, so
Yeah.
let's table that one.
Okay.
We can come back to that. Let's, we'll give it some thought. And,
Yeah, the next one I'm really excited about, Streamline hiring process.
Page.
it's gonna be under city administrator. 10 on mine. I think we're gonna have to add it. I think, excuse me. I thought I saw something in here where it says he's in charge of hiring.
Yeah, there's.
I can't remember what number that was. 3. See, he's prepared, look at that. Shall appoint all employees of the city with approval of the common council except as provided otherwise in the charter or applicable by law. I would like to get at least,
Whoa, what?
right now that anything under, an assistant department head, you should be able to hire, to streamline the hiring process. Like, when you think of like DPW with our, as a prime example.
You weren't there, right? Were you there at the last finance meeting? When we had a maintenance worker appointment and we went into executive session to talk about a specific candidate. And that wouldn't have even existed if we just said, departments can handle their own, city administrator appointing. If it's a budgeted position. So anyway, sorry.
No.
I thought of it when we had that conversation, I thought of this. And so now that you're mentioning DPW, I'm like, yes, this just happened.
I look at the last one of the council meetings where we couldn't get a majority here, and we had to keep calling and postponing the appointment. And, to be competitive, I think, you got to be able to offer them so they can give their 2 weeks and get here and not be like, oh, well, there is that potential that they're going to say no. So
you're suggesting,
I would suggest that, I mean, like I said, I think department heads and the assistant department heads, I think the council should have a say in.
Yeah, I agree.
Um,
Because we're going to be not directly working with those people, but on a more direct basis. And it's, they're leading a department, so they kind of lead the department, which leads the city. So.
Great. I would just pose a general question. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on what sort of input does the council, should the council provide on the hiring of a particular individual for whatever position, whether it's department head or maintenance worker. Like, what do we do right now?
Well,
This is a
Yeah.
thought experiment.
My opinion is when it comes to department heads, the council should be involved in the hiring process. We should be there with the candidate. I think,
How many people, when you hire a department head, which we've recently done, how many people and whom are typically invited into the hiring process? What does it look like now?
So really it depends, in my case, I can't speak for previous.
Right,
Manager,
please,
the role of manager.
of course.
But really, it's up to me how I do that. According to the charter, I appoint council approves, so theoretically, I could interview people myself without anyone else involved. If I decided that was what I wanted to do, that's not my style or I think that's valuable. So depending on
The position we're talking about.
I would invite in other department heads at some point in the process, not necessarily every step of the way. Obviously, HR director is involved in everything, so we're hiring the HR director. It really depends on the group. The police chief is defined in the code now. The charter and the police board is defined. Some other community individuals can be included in that process. So it depends on the case.
Yeah. I guess my concern would be, I know, and sort of what I was getting at, is I know that you generally invite in a panel to at least a part of the interview process. And I think that having, and to be clear, 8 of us would never show up, but having that many more people in the room could be prohibitive. necessarily, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily favor that as an idea, but I think that, and I'm interested to hear where you wanna go with this. I think that what we do now, where, you know, we hear your reasoning and your thoughts behind it, is helpful to us in understanding what to expect from an individual, what you expect from an individual in that role. And so I wouldn't wanna lose that at a department head, or even deputy department head level. So that's kind of my 2 cents, but I'm interested to hear like how you see that working with more council involvement.
Well, there's two different ways you can go with this. I mean, if you wanna have the city administrator be the overall, yes, we can take it right out of the council. There's no sense of us saying yes or no, because I'm thinking back to one of the last ones that we did, was almost a divided council. Or if we're gonna keep the department head and the assistant department head, I think, honestly, I view it this way as being up here. This is the one spot where I have more people in my ward say we need to be more influential on is our hiring of our department heads and our assistant department heads, because they really should be city residents. And, well, I also understand that sometimes you're more qualified outside the city, but, you know, if we're gonna be saying yes, I think, even though Greg gives us a detailed thing, I'd rather hear from the candidate and have my questions answered before I can say yes or no. So,
But you see how that could get like really.
but I've been through it though with other municipalities, even when they have a administrator, we still had to go in to like 2 or 3 representatives from the council and answer questions.
So you're saying like make that a part of the interview process, not
Yep.
infuse us into the existing interview process, but create something new where there's interface with the council prior to appointment. I don't hate that. I also agree with you about city residency. I can give an example where I had brought something to the attention of one of the department heads and they responded really quickly and I thanked them for that and they said to me, I live here too. And that was like such a powerful sentence. I think that you're right, a lot of times, especially with our population the way it is right now, there are qualified candidates outside, and I think that we need to figure out a way to incentivize those people to invest in this community and to, you know, move here and give them a grace period, you know, of a year even, but really.
When you're talking about waivers, because this is gonna go right into this, my philosophy of waiver is this: a full-time waiver to be able to retire out of the city should not be a card on the table. Waiver is to give you time to get here if you're interested in the position, especially if you have to move a family and stuff. The second thing is with a waiver, it's more for like when we had the police chief that could buy his house anywhere, because at that time there was a thing when he was a police officer and he moved up through the ranks and he made police chief.
That's a special exception.
That's a special exception. I don't think it should be, oh, well, we can give you a waiver to be hired here. And that's really my holdup on that is, you know, and we might lose some good candidates for that, but I think, you know, the city residents, when I'm out walking in my ward, that's one of their things is they're getting paid good money to be here. They're getting benefits, but we don't get any of the stuff back, you know, except for their service that they're here. And I mean, we got some good ones. Don't tell, I can think of one right off the top of my head that was at a meeting with me. You know, and I'm glad we have them. But I also think we have to look at, you know, when you're paying top dollar and.
Well, can I jump in? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. It's an open, it's fine.
I have to, I guess, first say that I disagree. I don't think that we're a big enough city that with 13,000 people,
You take out college students, you take out people that are retired, you take out people that are too young to work. and then you take your working pool, whatever population that is, that you're gonna find, you'll be lucky in many cases to find one really well qualified candidate for one of these higher level positions. In many cases, you'll find none. And if you find one or two or three, you know, are they the best qualified? If you're really limiting your pool by doing that. And I think that's doing much more of a disservice to the city taxpayers, which I am one, by limiting the talent pool for filling these really important positions in the government, which, and the idea, I think you said that you're not getting anything back from someone who is in a position and doesn't live in the city, and we're paying top dollar. We're not paying top dollar, we're paying good money, but we're not necessarily, you know,
You're paying almost top dollar for this type of region though, Greg, you really are. If you look at,
Okay, well, I won't debate that. I don't need to debate what we're paying people, but we're paying them to do a job, and they're doing the job, and if they're doing it well, and if they're qualified for it, where they live, to me, does not matter. It just doesn't. That's my.
But you know that our economy is driven through this, right? The dollar spent here goes 3 more times. So if you're paying the employee and they spend that dollar here in our community, then we see that through the retail stores and grocery stores and everywhere else 3 more times.
Well, it's someone's dollar spent at the grocery store. We don't pay a department head to spend money at the grocery store. Like, they might live an hour away and eat lunch out on Main Street every day, which I knew several Florida employees that do that. And that's just as productive as spending money at the grocery store, when the grocery store's your hometown. But we're paying them to, you know, if they're the finance director, we're paying them to do the finance director's job, and that has nothing to do with what they eat. That has to do with how they do with that job. And I think that is so much more important and valuable. I'm not saying that there wouldn't be a good candidate in the city. There's not.
Can I just?
But there's not necessarily a good or right candidate in the city, and I wouldn't want to limit ourselves.
Yeah, I
There
just
might
wanted to
be
jump in because,
an incentive, but maybe not a penalty.
right, like we might, I don't know if I totally get what you're saying about in terms of like the pool of qualified candidates within the city, but I don't know that we need to limit it to the city as long as we are saying like it's important to us that you like move here and become a part of our community.
Right.
I don't know,
and
that's my perspective.
yeah,
So-
and I think that there are people who, the best candidate who just aren't willing to do that, for, you know, whatever reason. They have a
Sure.
family life, and, you know, you would be limiting the pool. That's my point, that our pools are limited as they are, and I would be worried about finding the, you know, best candidate in a very small pool. You know.
well, I'm gonna disagree with you, it's a small pool, because we could post a position, we could do a national search where they know they're gonna have to move here. So you're not limiting the pool that you're doing, what you're gonna limit the pool is if they wanna move here or not. So, I mean, maybe I'm just reading too much into it, getting down in the grass, but to me, you're not limiting a pool of who can apply for the job.
Yeah, I don't want
You're
to
limiting
do
the
that.
pool, you know, the only part you're gonna limit is if they're gonna say, yes, I'm gonna move here, or no, I'm not. You know, so I don't,
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think you're less likely to get people to move if we're only advertising regionally because they live close enough that it's like, well, can't I just stay where I live? But if we are advertising nationally, like, shoot, I would move to Phoenix, Arizona. You know what I mean? If there was a good job, obviously you have to move at that point, you know, to Scott's point. So I think that, I don't know, there's potential.
but I also look at response times too. You know, I'm not saying that this happens, but say we hired a fire chief, and say he lives, in Cobleskill. I'm not sure I'd want my fire chief living in Cobleskill to respond all the way back here when there's a structure fire or something going on.
Don't we have
No.
response time?
So I would want him to be a resident of the city of Oneonta. Same with the police chief. I wouldn't want them living down towards Binghamton. When it hits the fan, I would want them living in the city of Oneonta. You know, so I think there's good cause of why not to give out waivers.
Would you say that about every position?
Well, we know we've given out waivers for some of the positions, but yet some of the positions or other positions are mandated to live within the city.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
these three people do
and
generally say
back-
that about every position.
But back to your point, I agree with that if they're spending their lunch money downtown, that is
Mhm.
infusing money into the economy. What you're forgetting to recognize is that they're buying a home, or they're renting an apartment, or they're renting a home, and tax dollars are coming from that, which helps our budget. So I just want to add that into the city residency. There is a point of that, but also you face people. I sincerely doubt that you get to go pretty much anywhere without somebody recognizing who you are. I'm sure some of them take advantage of that opportunity to interface with you about concerns and thoughts that they have. Maybe,
Is that
maybe you slip under
Are
the.
you saying that's a good thing?
That's a serious question. Are you saying that it should be an expected part of a job that people are approached?
I know it's an
because they're
expected part of
recognizable?
this job is,
Well, you're.
for me, I know that.
We asked for it, we signed up.
Well, it was the same as a firefighter. People just knew who you were. They, you know, I'm sure you're getting recognized as our city administrator coming into your second year. I'm sure folks are, putting your face, Vicky's taking pictures at least once or twice, and you're getting recognized as our city administrator. And
It hasn't changed anything about how I do my job, though.
I don't think it has an impact on how you do your job. I'm just saying that people will take that opportunity to get to you. So that means you're more intimate into the community. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's something to be said about city residents getting to know their city employees too. I think there's a camaraderie there when, I remember growing up and stuff, like knowing the city DPW guys that are on the tractors and stuff, stopping and talking, and you knew where they lived, and you knew you could go run into their house and knock on the door if there's a problem. I think that there's a lot to say with that. I think there's, there's also you feel safer because you have. Not saying that they're asking for it. I mean, but I mean, people knew I was on the volunteer fire department, and they would run up to my house and knock on the door because they needed to get the right answer or help, and they felt safe.
We were talking a little bit about, or specifically about department heads and assistants or deputies, if one exists, they don't always have an assistant or deputy. But you're talking about firefighters and DPW workers. Are you talking residency required for all employees? I mean, what you're talking about,
Recognizing people, I mean, that can be just as applicable to a maintenance worker as a department head level, right? I mean, what's the difference?
So my experience was as a firefighter. That's what I was relaying with you or sharing with you.
The firefighters aren't required to live in the city.
Right? They have like
They have a
radius.
radius. They actually have to, it used to be when I first got hired, it was within the fire district, which included the town of Oneonta. And then at some point, it changed 5 miles or 6 miles from the
The
flagpole.
The flagpole, which is not enforceable, is in violation of the state law. So it's not something we enforce now. As far as both, it's not enforceable at all. State law requires firefighters to live in a contiguous county of the county in which they work, which means they could be in Old Forge and work here according to that. I'm not saying that that's practical. I don't think anyone would
Right.
apply to out here from there, but just in that example, we don't really have anything now.
So are you saying that it would be against the law for the city of Oneonta County Council to require city residency for any position?
Oh, no, specifically firefighters.
Oh,
It's firefighter specific.
state law. Okay. Within the county or a contiguous county? Wow, you could stretch that one out. Delaware County goes down quite a ways.
And, we hear from employees and we hear, it's not just from city employees, and finding housing in the city is not necessarily easy.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I was.
Discussions here.
I mean, I'm not so much on our, I don't don't know how to say this, because I don't want to demean them, because I'm not, because they're the most important, is the boots on the ground, is, I'm not so much worried about that with a residence requirement.
You mentioned a response time.
No, I was saying like the fire chief, like, I was just using that, like, if it was a fire chief or a police chief, I wouldn't want them, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that should be, that's what I was,
Well, it sounds like with the firefighters, you don't get a choice.
I guess my point is the ones that are most likely needed to physically respond are, certain positions, and they're typically the line positions, the ones that are fighting the fire, responding to the 911 call.
I don't know, I'd hope that,
Dealing with the flood, not necessarily the higher level department head positions, not so. Just point out that.
no, I know, I would hope that, I mean, at least it was when I was coming through the fire service, I don't know how when Lynn was, but I just hope it's still that way, is the one that's signed on for the fire department wants to try to get to that first truck or second truck out to get to the fire. But they got that much energy, It's us older ones that are sitting there going, holy crap, I'm not sure,
I guess my general point of view on this is that we want to make the city of Oneonta a place that people want to live and not try to force that.
I don't think it's too much to ask of a department head that if you're gonna put in for a job to look for housing within the city of Oneonta. I don't think that that's an unreasonable request at all.
Especially if we're willing to figure out, well, actually, I don't know if we are allowed to by law. But maybe there's a way to incentivize that somehow, that I'm just not sure of yet. Like, I guess my point is though, that if we're sort of willing to try to make it easier somehow, we're not just saying like, you gotta do this or else, that would be good.
Well, I don't think we're gonna solve the waiver issue tonight. Kinda got a little off topic there with that, but, I don't know how to phrase, I don't know if maybe our city clerk has something, or if Greg, if you have something about
Number 3.
about number 3, about, she's already smiling, what do you got?
So my thought would be to separate 3 into 3 and a new 4, rearrange the numbering. Number 3 would read, shall appoint all department heads and deputy department heads of the city with the approval of the common council, the rest remains the same. But new number 4, shall appoint all other employees of the city, except as provided otherwise in this charter or by applicable law.
What do you think, Glenn?
Well, it gets back to your original statement that if you go with that, that means that the common council still says yes to the department heads, and you mentioned maybe it should be all or nothing. So you're either part of the process or the hiring of all employees is completely on the city administrator's shoulders, right, wrong, or indifferent.
I mean, your department heads and assistant department heads, I said there was 2 different ways you could do it. Department heads, assistant department heads is, we give the approval, like I said, I'm not sure you wanna give that up. I think you'd wanna have a say in that.
Can we, number 4, shall appoint all the other employees of the city, can we add, I'm asking the room, something about in conjunction with the HR director?
Well, here's another thing.
I would like to have it funded also.
Yes. Good point. Previously budgeted
You just say
positions.
funded, you know that it's there, you know it's in the budget.
So shall, in coordination with the Human Resources Director, appoint all other employees of the city as funded, except as provided, ...
What was that?
Sounds shall, in coordination with the Human Resources Director, appoint all other employees of the city as funded, except as provided otherwise in this charter by applicable law.
You could just say fill when needed funded positions.
Fill any vacant position.
Any vacant funded positions.
I think it might be important to include the term appoint, because
Yeah.
the term appointing authority is important when it comes to civil service. Who is the appointing authority? That. And my thought on this in general, and I think you're sort of moving toward that, is if a position is included in the budget, our budget includes the list of positions, the number, and then there's a total budget that's adopted. If it's an adopted position and it goes vacant, just, let's not wait around for the process where
Right.
we literally never said no to a candidate. And the only reason that a councilman would say no, I would question why that would happen, just from hearing a name, which is what we do. So in practice, it's an extra, in some cases, an extra length of time, with no end benefit.
Could we just wordsmith number 6 to take care of what we're trying to accomplish with a new number?
I think it'd be the old 6, wasn't it? In conjunction with the Director of
Director of
Human
Human-
Resources.
May suspend or remove any employee. You could add the appoint.
Yeah, we could put that in with that, I think.
Appoint,
Suspend or remove.
well, appoint, an employee to a funded position.
No, there's a word you wanted. What was the word you wanted? Was it a point?
Appoint is what he
Oh,
was
okay.
asking for. So in conjunction with the Director of Human Resource,
May appoint.
appoint an employee, but you're gonna have to describe the employee, not non-department headed.
Well, we have like the administrative schedule, right? So can we say below grade? No?
I mean, I wouldn't put that in charter. Administrative schedule is one schedule, there's every union, and grades change with union negotiations, and.
Okay.
And I guess you do.
I mean, somehow add in other than department head in the appointing. In conjunction with the Director of Human Resource.
Well, what do we call our
It's actually not
department heads?
Director of
Department
Human
heads have a
Resource
name.
anymore, is it?
Is it? I thought there was like,
I mean,
they were called like an officer or something like
yeah,
that.
If you wanna use the term department heads, then that's a whole other question of what do you consider a department head?
Well,
I mean, that can change with an organization, an organizational structure and how things, titles can change and that sort of thing, so defining department heads specifically, so that there's no ambiguity.
Is
yeah,
that,
do we have to add that to the definitions page?
is that, I was gonna say, is that in the definition?
Nope.
What page you got for definitions?
Five.
We could add it in there.
saying about 6. I'm not ignoring it.
6?
Going,
Oh,
yeah. So shall, in coordination with the Human Resources Director, appoint personnel to any vacant funded position of the city, except as provided otherwise in this charter or by applicable law.
sounds good to me.
I don't have an answer for the department head one, but
Right, so you're almost right to 6 if you just added suspend and remove.
so just, I could add it as a second sentence, but
Yeah.
I was struggling with it not being a run-on, putting it together in one.
Because you're just about the same language, short of, as authorized by state law or pursuant to the terms of any applicable collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah.
Or,
You
well,
could say may appoint to any funded vacant position or suspend or remove any employee of the city. Or and may suspend or remove.
And you do have to identify, Carrie was talking about that, other than referenced in another place within this charter, and that would take you back to,
Except as otherwise specified, right?
right, which would take you back to having the council chime in on a department head.
Right. Senior level? No. Okay.
Is there a difference, I mean, it still has to be defined, what is senior level, what is department head, what is very special versus not,
Yeah.
whatever you call it, define.
Can we start calling them very special people?
Good, but what does that mean, whatever?
You are.
well, here at C14 kind of gives you, this is city officers designated generally. And it tells you who the city officers are. You go down through and then you get to include the city administrator, prosecutor, halftime judge, health officer, director of finance, city clerk, assessor, city engineer, city attorney, and deputy clerks and deputy directors of finance. So you can spell it out in there who you want to
You don't
use.
have, like, code enforcement?
Officers do not equal department heads. It's a different, really a different thing altogether. I don't know what, I can't say exactly what makes each of these an officer as to not, I would ask Dave Mersey to.
That's a
Ability
good
to
one.
invoke the power of the sovereign, according to Wade Beltramo. You can make decisions and commitments on behalf of the city.
Cool.
Yeah, that's just about everybody. The fire chief can make a decision on behalf of the city. The police chief can make a decision on behalf of the city.
They can make
DPW
decisions
probably
on behalf of the
theoretically
city,
could.
But they can't financially bind the city.
Right, right.
So they can make command staff decisions, but they can't, yeah.
City engineer can make a binding monetary,
Oh, city
whatever.
health officer too? That's strange.
That's just what the definition is.
Could you?
Like, don't come for
That's
me.
where we're at.
Alright. Well, I went there, I just thought maybe we could stick it in there, but then we just do that and make it a little bit easier.
Again, I don't know, I mean, what is the point of having a city administrator or manager or whatever? Then just
I
generally.
can't really hear you. I'm sorry.
What's the point of having a city administrator form of government? What do you want to call that? Like, why do we have one?
Because you have intimate knowledge of the day-to-day operations of the city, and you effectively operate it.
I mean, I guess if you go with like, I mean, probably the number one bullet or something, right, is the most general, responsible for the administration of all city affairs in the city's charter. I don't know, I just think that at the organizational structure, I mean, I know that further on in the charter, it defines departments, some of which don't exist anymore.
Really?
How, yeah, I mean, I think department, it's not.
I think we changed some of them.
The department works, but it's somewhat restrictive of how the city might want to change over time.
That's an interesting.
And if the administrator's job is to effectively manage the operations Yet with the department heads, the ones that direct reports to the administrator are selected, not primarily by the administrator or not appointed by the administrator. Could that theoretically undermine the whole idea of having administrators?
Ask Otsego County, because their administrator doesn't hire. County board has to approve it.
I'm not
You know, I'm just saying, I don't know, I just saying, ask him if that hinders him, that's all I meant. You know, because he didn't get any of that authority.
I mean, so when you look at the charter and the definitions of departments, I'm just on the very first one, just Department of Finance. Constituted, there shall be a Department of Finance, the head of which shall be the Director of Finance. Department of Personnel constituted, there shall be a Department of Personnel, the head of which shall be the Personnel Director. Oh, that's not right, but it makes sense. We changed that though, right? This is
Yeah.
all charter?
Oh, little changes at a time.
Okay.
Will be,
Okay.
but.
There shall be a department of the city clerk, the head of which shall be the city clerk. That one sounds fun.
So we have.
So technically Dave Merzig is the head of the Department of Law, which is hilarious because he's also the only member. We also don't have the assessment department anymore. As defined, can we say positions as defined in
The department heads are in the,
whatever, C-49 through XYZ?
All the other department heads are listed, Katie?
Central Garage, Fleet Operations Manager, Department of Community Development, Director of Community Development. It seems like it, I mean, without doing, you know, really thinking about it, it seems like they're all here, so we could say as designated in C-46 or something through 59.
Part of engineering doesn't exist enough, it's an
Public
office
Works.
within Department of Public Works. I mean, these are sort of in the in-house, trying to call them in-house title departments and that sort of thing, which goes to my point about flexibility and the structure with which we operate. To make that sort of change, you know, technically, should we be updating the charter every time or change something like that?
Right.
It doesn't, city engineer is referenced throughout our code as overseeing code enforcement. That's why there's no code enforcement in the section to read
Okay.
covered underneath engineering, even though that's in function operates as its own office with department.
Yeah, that's the code enforcement.
so, now you raise an interesting point, we probably should have went back and changed the charter. When you change departments, cause then you're kind of working outside of the charter.
Well, and then to your point, like,
So-
how do we stay nimble? Can we
Well,
can we scrap
you
this
know-
entirely?
you know what-
Do we want to do that? That's a referendum for sure, but.
What should happen, to answer your question with the city charter and stay fluid, is it really should be opened every year. There should always be a charter committee who looks at, like when Greg goes to civil service and they change, I think DPW director got changed once or something like that, the title kinda got changed, they should have opened it up, changed that in this as well. And then, so that legislatively, we should sit there and say one of the boards or commissions that need to be there, or, you know, should be a charter committee, and that it's opened, that their process, they can meet once a year or never meet, but if there's something that happens that this gets opened, if we do change a charter, or like when we went from city manager to city administrator, when we changed that word, you know, we all had to convene to do that, or they could have went through and said, hey, we're gonna do this, and then came back. So then it's fluid, that's, you know,
I think most likely all of these department definitions that are in here existed prior to city manager being a thing. And if you didn't have a city manager, one would get somehow the city had to define what is our structure and who defined that. You know, it wasn't the mayor, it was the charter. And that's how it works. I think the idea with city manager or city administrator is to have more flexibility in the operations to change the charter, I think the idea of the administrator, the engineer, or the engineer, manager is to be able to make those decisions easily, quickly, and shift to deliver whatever services that we're trying to provide.
Okay, so say we scrap these department, it's a big deal, say we scrap it. We add a section to the city administrator's portion that says, shall define as they see fit departments that serve the operational interests of the city, each of which shall be led by a department head. And then we say department heads in whatever C3, C17, 3.
I think if you do that, you're gonna get into a point where we're gonna go out to referendum, because I think it's gonna be such a major portion change to the charter.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a lawyer, that's Dave's job, but that's,
Hear me, if we do that, you know, is that a more flexible solution? Just think about it.
So I'm on page 29, and it's looking at police department, fire department, and we're trying to define what the head of a department is, department head. I believe Brady, what you're tasking us with is defining that. I think the definition is right there. There shall be a police department, the head of which.
Also, it kind of drives me crazy that
So,
that's all it says,
the
for
head
police and
of
fire, and the rest of
any
them
of the
have these like
departments.
essays.
Will be
head of.
you and then the council's approval, whereas all other non-head,
Right.
define that however you want, wordsmith it however you want.
I guess,
I hear what you're saying, but I don't think we're ready to, and that was the definition of why we went from manager, which you just said manager, to administrator was because of that, because of the definition of expectation of that position. That's how it was presented to this council. That's what we believed in and bought into, and that's why there was a change from manager to administrator, so.
so that the council could approve department heads, is that what I'm not quite following.
Not that specifically.
That there was more
Control.
activity, control. If you wanna break it down to one word, it would be control
Okay.
of your position, but you're absolutely right.
Well,
It's the council's position to set the vision along with the mayor, and it's your responsibility to apply that vision. Like you did a survey last year. What services do the elected and city staff wanna provide? And you've made a comprehensive survey of services to provide, which helps you prepare your budget for this year. You know which services we need to continue providing. So, I think to help streamline your position, which the council is agreeing that there needs to be some streamlining, other than the head of the department.
So we would continue doing department heads exactly as we do now, and the other
Well,
ways would change.
No, I think you're
if
gonna,
there's others, I mean, as Dave Merzick says all the time, if you get 5, you can do whatever, but Scott would like to have participation in the interview process of the department heads.
I question,
You asked us that. What would you be asking? What would you be looking for?
right, I mean, the council as a whole is the body that acts and makes decisions. How can the council as a whole make a decision if one or a number, but not all of them, have differing information or more insight or participation in the process?
We do that all the time.
If council member A is involved in the process, council member B is not. I don't know.
We do that all the time on committees. That's kind of my argument against them.
That's an open public session, though, I guess, an interview is a public thing.
That's true.
I don't know, I think there's a difference. And I think stating the, maybe, it's obvious to me that there's an opportunity for what you might call political influence in a hiring of an employee, like whatever that might be. I'm not saying that I expect that a politician or an elected official is going to have motives that don't align with the city's best interests. Of course they do, but it introduces a strange aspect to the hiring process.
And we all have
Find me
I said, I've been through them where I've had to sit with a whole village board versus, I've sat here when the whole board was the personnel, or it was the whole, public safety board when I was interviewing for a position. You come in, you sat there, here's 8 people, the mayor, John and Setta sat over there.
I am.
You know what I'm saying, so I guess I'm just gonna disregard, disagree, sorry. Disagree with some of that. I mean, you're not gonna get 8 people together on a political appointment. We can't get 8 people together to do.
Well, I think that's the thing is like, if we all have equal access to the situation, whether it's an interview or even if you know, recorded interviews and we had the opportunity to watch them, I don't know if that's a thing, I just threw it out. But if all 8 people had the opportunity, whether or not you took that opportunity removes, again, it's an equalizer, you know, and then all 8 of us would have to then vote to appoint that person. So it's not like we're sending in, I'm sorry to point you guys out, the 2 Republicans every time, you know? There would be equal access. We do? Oh, wait, we do? Who else is an independent? Well, he's, alright. He's not one of the 8, but anyway. But yeah, so I think if there weren't like a dedicated hiring committee, which we do have the finance HR committee, and everyone on the council was given equal opportunity to participate, that would be a fair system, because then it comes up for a vote. So even if it was, you know, the same 2 people every time, there's still, we all sit down to the table. I'm not saying, yeah,
I could play devil's advocate too, Ray. It's just, you know, not saying you would ever do this, don't take this. Let's say somebody's in the city administrator's job, and,
City administrator at any time, that's the, you can remove the city administrator at any time, the council can.
right, but I'm just saying somebody's sitting in the city administrator's seat. I just wanna keep it generic. And they, all of a sudden, hey, I'm gonna hire my friend to be this department head. Nothing stops them from doing it. We're not in the hiring process. The city administrator gives us the stuff. Yep. You know, so I mean, it goes both ways. I mean, it can happen both ways. I think we gotta have a checks and balance. That's what I'm getting at for that.
I would certainly argue the balance is you can remove me tonight, or not tonight, feel free to, but, you know, you can remove the city administrator very easily as a council. That's just the fact.
Well, I'm not sure how easy that is either, because they went through the process once before removing one. I was a city manager at the time. So, but, well, it's almost 7:15. I don't think we're gonna get anything drafted up tonight to get.
no, we have one thing,
No, I meant of this,
Oh, okay.
the streamlining, but we're close. I think we're close.
sure.
I think we're close at the,
I think we all have the spirit of the intent, which is
Yep.
to allow the city administrator to day-to-day
Well-
hire budgeted positions. We budget the positions, we would like to give you the authority to hire them.
so, if we can keep what we got, we'll have that, maybe get that sent out. We can just look at it real quick amongst ourselves and then try to come up with wording for department head, how we wanna do that. And then I think that will be good to get that, you know, I'd like to try to at least get something streamlined for Greg and his departments to hire the people underneath the department heads. I think that's, you know, so we can be competitive. 'Cause I think we really hurt ourselves that way. I think we can all agree on that. So, is there anything else we want to bring up tonight? Lynn? Greg? Carrie?
I'm just speaking
we'll just,